Today we're going to build a batch in Chef's food cost calculator. A batch is a reusable prep item you make from ingredients. Common examples are sauces, dressings, marinades, stocks, doughs, spice blends, soups, or prep mixes. A batch is usually not the finished menu item. It is a component you make ahead of time and reuse later inside recipes, menus, or event builds. For this example, we're going to build an Alfredo sauce batch. I already added the ingredients to my library, so the app already knows the purchase cost, supplier, category, and unit for each ingredient. Now, we're in the calculator. I'll start by adding heavy cream and entering 8 cups. This is the amount used in the batch, not the amount purchased from the supplier. Because heavy cream is already saved in the ingredient library, the app can pull in its purchase cost and calculate what 8 cups cost for this batch. Next, I'll add Parmesan cheese. For this batch, I'm using 1 pound of Parmesan. Again, I'm not re-entering the supplier price. I'm only telling the calculator how much of that saved ingredient goes into this batch. Now I'll add butter. This batch uses half a pound of butter. The calculator will include that amount in the total batch cost, along with the other ingredients. Next, I'll add garlic. For garlic, I'm using 2 ounces. This is a good example of why unit conversion matters. You might buy garlic by the pound, but only use a few ounces in the batch. Finally, I'll add parsley. For this batch, I'm using 1 ounce of parsley. Before moving on, I like to pause and review the ingredient list. I'm checking that each ingredient was added, the amounts look right, and the units match what I intended to use. This is a good habit because the batch cost depends on these line items. Once everything looks correct, we can move to the yield section and tell the app what this batch produces. Yield means what this batch produces after it's made. For this Alfredo sauce batch, the finished batch makes 12 cups, so I'll enter 12 and choose cups as the yield unit. This is one of the most important parts of building a batch, because the yield is what turns the total batch cost into a cost per cup. Next, I'll enter 3% waste. Waste helps account for normal prep loss, like sauce left in the pot or slight evaporation. This gives me a more realistic batch cost. Now on the build summary. This is where I can review the batch cost before saving it. For a batch, the key number is the cost per yield unit. In this case, that means the cost per cup of Alfredo sauce. That cost per cup is what the app will use later when this batch is added to a recipe. Now I'm ready to save this batch. Since this is a reusable prep item, I'm saving it as a batch, not a recipe. I'll name it Alfredo Sauce Batch. Saving it as a batch makes it available to use later inside recipes. That way, I don't have to rebuild the Alfredo sauce every time I use it. Once everything looks right, I'll tap Save Batch. Now the app stores the batch cost and the cost per cup for later. After saving, I'm back on the calculator screen and the build has cleared. That means the batch was saved and the calculator is ready for the next build. Now I'll go to the Batches page to review the Save Batch. Here I can see Alfredo Sauce Batch in my batch library. Opening the batch lets me review the ingredients, total cost, yield, and cost per cup. This is helpful when I want to double-check the batch before using it inside a recipe. And that's how to build and save a batch. The key thing to remember is that a batch is reusable prep. It helps you cost items like sauces, dressings, marinades, stocks, doughs, and spice blends one time, then reuse them later inside recipes. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped you understand how batches work and how they can make your recipe costing easier.